Gakpo in the box, fires it into the back of the net. It's Liverpool 1, Manchester United 0. Being turned into the net by Darwin Núñez. Núñez over the far side, gives to Gakpo, has a shot, it's a goal for Liverpool. Mo Salah scores for Liverpool to make it Liverpool 4, Manchester United 0. Henderson picks it up, then puts the cross in and it comes off the head of Darwin Núñez. It's a fab 5 for the boys from Liverpool. Salah finishes, and that's his second goal of the afternoon. It's a super 6 for the Reds. The week that Firmino announces he's leaving Anfield, he's just smacked one into the back of the net, right in front of the Kop, and it's bedlam down there.
Yeah, this is a tough watch. I've got to be honest with you now. What is it, 7?
It's Liverpool 7, Manchester United 0.
That was some top-class editing from Emma Carroll to get 7 goals into 42 seconds.
Emma came in this morning, was like, I have great commentary from the match last night. I was like, yeah, okay, that would be good. How long is it? We didn't have much time. 42 seconds. I was like, surely it can be shorter than that. I was like, Colm, that's the shortest I can make it to get all the goals in.
That's like what, 6 seconds per goal? That's not bad at all.
All right, let's avoid for as much as we can the pantomime nature of all this, because we'll get to some of the comments for you, Shane, in a little while. But where are we starting in the red this morning, Shane?
Comments from me? I don't know what people are talking about. Yeah, I think we'll start with Manchester United in the red. Never has a team probably deserved to be in the red of the performance rankings more, because yesterday was, well, a day that will live in infamy for Manchester United fans. They will all be going to work this morning, as you said, Nathan, with a little tear in their eye as they think back to those 90 minutes of torture and hell for Erik ten Hag. There was moments in the first half where you're watching Erik ten Hag on the sideline, taking his notes, his usual calm demeanour. Even when they went 1-0 down and at half-time, you're thinking, okay, United are a second-half team, generally speaking, of late. But the signs were there fairly early on. Someone like Casemiro, who has been a linchpin in that United midfield this season, just wasn't at it. I don't know if many of the United players were at it in the first half. There was a couple of chances from Rashford and Bruno, and you were thinking if they'd gone in, maybe there was a chance. But then the second half was just, I don't know if you'll call it a capitulation. Maybe you will. We'll get to Liverpool later on.
Capitulation is being kind.
Yeah.
Like, this was one of the most embarrassing, humiliating, shambolic 45 minutes that any team have ever put in the history of the Premier League. If you look at the all-time record defeats, the 9-0s, the 8-0s, it's minnows. They're the teams who get beaten by these sort of scorelines. Because I think, as Neville and Keane rightly pointed out after the game, there's a professionalism that the top teams should automatically have, that when it gets to 3 or 4-0, these guys have all played hundreds, thousands of games of football. They know when it's not your day. They know when it's going wrong. They know when it can get out of hand. And that's when you just put the handbrake on, you slow it right down, and you go home with your 3-0, with your tails between your legs, and you regroup. You got another match next week. You're going still for 2 other trophies. Your title ambitions are probably gone, but you put the head down. But if anything, it was the complete opposite. The last 10 minutes, like 7-0 ended up being kind to Liverpool. They could have had 2 or 3 more goals. There could have been 2 or 3 red cards from Manchester United. It's hard to think of a situation where heads were gone as badly as that United team.
Liverpool were very efficient with their scoring. They scored 7 of their 8 shots on target. So yeah, it could have been worse, but thankfully didn't have any more shots on target, because by the end, any shot at all would have gone in, judging by United's mentality. But afterwards, Erik ten Hag very coldly analysed it, saying they were disgraceful but also unprofessional, and he used that word 3 times in the post-match interview on Sky Sports. Did not hide behind the fact about what happened at all. But one thing I disagree with there, Shane, is, like, I thought Manchester United were decent in the first half. I thought they probably about shaded it.
Yeah.
And I thought you were saying the early signs there, it wasn't looking good. I thought Casemiro was way off it. His passing was awry from the start. But if you analyse the first half, I thought Liverpool slightly shaded the first quarter, slightly. And then from about the 15th minute until the 43rd, Cody Gakpo's first goal, I thought United were slightly better. You look at the chances. Anthony started off with a shot out just outside the box, curled it on his left with Alisson at the force behind for a corner. And then you had the Bruno Fernandes header from that crossing from the right hand side, and it just went wide. I was absolutely convinced that was a goal. And then just after that, Luke Shaw's beautiful through ball to Marcus Rashford, who tried to take it first time, judging by his confidence at the moment. Rashford has never scored on Merseyside, either away to Liverpool or Everton, and I thought he could have taken a touch and composed himself and shot past Alisson, but United didn't take their chances. And then when Liverpool scored that first goal, they just took it from there. But I don't think anybody saw what was going to happen in the second half. I would love to know what happened at half-time in that dressing room.
Well, can I just ask in the first half, because a lot was made post-game of United being the better team in the first half, and as you say, I thought
That's all irrelevant.
It was relatively tight in the first half. United certainly had their chances, and with Rashford's form you would expect them to take that opportunity. I was still really surprised in the first half an hour by United's absence of ambition.
They were wasting time.
And this was almost been encouraged. And listen, Gary Neville has played there dozens of times, so he understands the psyche of going to Anfield, and he was very keen to point out again and again that this place is what really tests a Manchester United squad.
Yeah.
But Liverpool have been at a very low ebb. And if you look at Liverpool over the last 3 months, you look at some of the bad defeats that they've taken against Brighton, against Brentford, you sort of knew going into those games that Liverpool might struggle with the intensity of those sides. Not the Liverpool of old, but the Liverpool that we've seen of this season, of the last 3 months, because they play so fast, they get at you, they'll press in your face, and it just felt that Manchester United had to come to Anfield with a high intensity game plan, that the counter-attacking football of Solskjaer that they felt worked well for them at times, obviously not against Liverpool last season, but that's what they were going to go for. Let Liverpool have it and you beat them on the break. That was not the game plan to beat Liverpool yesterday. They needed to be in their face, attacking front foot football in that first half, put them on the back foot in the first 15-20 minutes, make Anfield nervous. And it wouldn't take much to make Anfield nervous right now. I thought they paid them way too much respect. Didn't have anywhere near enough confidence in themselves. And there have to be some questions about Ten Hag's game plan as well, where he sticks Bruno Fernandes, who we will get onto, out on the left-hand side, sticks Marcus Rashford up front, plays Wout Weghorst as a number 10. When all of the pre-match expectation is that let Rashford have a run at Trent. Let him have a run. When we get on to Liverpool, that was Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson's best Liverpool performance all season by a country mile. They won't get the plaudits because of what the front three did. But the two of them were the players of last season, of the last 3 or 4 seasons. Crossfield balls, playing them off the right foot, off the left foot, doing whatever the hell they wanted. Yeah. And that was down to Ten Hag's tactics, letting them do that. Well, he got this one wrong as well.
I'm not sure. Like, Liverpool are at a low ebb by their hugely high standards that Jurgen Klopp has set over the last number of years, but they're not at their lowest ebb this season. I mean, coming into that game, the Real Madrid result, that was really also the second half, funny enough, a capitulation by Liverpool. But other than that, Liverpool have been decent since the 3-0 defeat away to Wolves on the 4th of February. Like, they won the Merseyside derby very handily. They won away to Newcastle 2-0, which was a great win. Okay, the 0-0 away to Crystal Palace last weekend was very poor, but then they beat Wolves 2-0. They've been very solid defensively.
They've got a lot better.
So they've done a lot better. So I don't think there was anything wrong at all with United's game plan in the first half, and I think we're only saying that now because of what happened in the second half. Gary Neville said in commentary, like you pointed out.
So you thought in the first half having Fernandes out on the left hand side?
No, I thought that was a poor. Strange. I didn't think the performance was too bad. Because Gary Neville said in commentary to Jamie Carragher, it was like they're slowing the game down, and he was in favour of that, and that's how they used to do it in his day. And if you look at the successful results that United had at Anfield in Gary Neville's time, like the John O'Shea 2007 game, Carlos Tevez 2008 game, that was exactly the same type of performance where United slowed it down. They didn't show any great ambition.
None of these things are relevant.
They didn't show any of those great ambitions.
What other team?
That's the game plan that Ten Hag went into.
15 years ago relevant
because
tactically to what can happen today?
It was as soon as it was relevant, apparently he was.
This is the first time taking United side to Anfield, and he said before, and I'm very excited to do this, he must have been looking at any sort of game plan. What traditionally works well at Anfield. I think that's what
there's no manager in the world is going back to 2007 going, this is the Manchester United way of winning at Anfield. Manchester United used to beat Liverpool all the time because they were a way better team than them.
He would have been told umpteen times what happens at Anfield is this. So you need to combat that. You can't treat it the same. So he said, okay, we'll slow the game down. They were visibly, clearly slowing the game down so much in the first half, right?
Game plan.
It was bizarre.
It really, lads, it wasn't bizarre because United shaded the first half.
I know, but
it was
United
actually
didn't
fine.
Need to be shading the first half.
I'd be way more concerned with the defensive capitulation in the second half than any sort of game plan in the first half.
Well, at
half time, everything was fine. Liverpool went 1-0 up at half time. Was okay, if United continue playing the way they are, they have a chance of getting back into this. That's what the half time discussion was.
Right.
The second half is a completely different game.
We're on red, so let's analyse critically some of the United players, because some of the performances were abysmal. Would be probably using a too light a word.
Let's start with your pal.
Right, Bruno Fernandes. You're mad to talk about Bruno Fernandes.
Bruno Fernandes, and somebody in our YouTube comments has just summed up Bruno Fernandes better than I ever could. Edward Freeman says, Bruno is a spoofer. If he was on the Titanic, he'd have thrown the women and children overboard to save himself.
Harsh. Jesus, that's harsh. Look, you famously said on this show last week, Nathan, you had your reservations about Bruno Fernandes. I came on the next morning and was like, well, look, Bruno Fernandes was very important in United's season so far. He's been crucial in Rashford's rejuvenation, I would argue as well. And I did stipulate and say, yes, his attitude leaves a lot to be desired at times. Even United fans get sick of the antics and the holding his face when he gets hit on the fucking shoulder or whatever else. And yeah, he is a frustrating player to watch, whether you support his team or whether you're against his team. Yesterday's performance was horrific, let's be honest. And it wasn't just the performance, it was his attitude generally speaking. Because, as we were speaking about earlier, he's wearing the captain's armband.
Does he ever captain Manchester United again?
Yeah, clearly.
Well, what's the alternative? David De Gea is the alternative, is he? Like Harry Maguire.
Casemiro, Rafa Varane.
Yeah.
You cannot look at the incident and there's half a dozen of them have been sent to me with Bajcetic at the end, where he has a little kick out at him, lets him roll by, throws his hands up into the air, could have been sent off for pushing the assistant referee. Like, this happened in the build up to 2 or 3 of the goals. He's dispossessed and he stands there. Like, that is not the behaviour of a world-class player, the way you spoke about him.
Captains lose discipline.
I'm not saying...
Keane and Vieira have lost discipline.
I understandably got a lot of blowback from Manchester United supporters who pointed out all the great things Bruno Fernandes has done. And I'm not saying in any way that Bruno Fernandes is not an incredibly talented footballer. Clearly he is. The point I was raising more than anything was, as Manchester United look to get to the next level, because the feeling was they had reached a certain level where they're contenders, if they want to become champions, is Bruno Fernandes good enough to bring them to that level? And I don't think consistently he is. He has moments, and I get he's trying for moments. That's what he does. He tries the dangerous pass all of the time. But there's too many games where he's not influential. He's clearly a pretty poisonous figure. If that's what your captain is allowed to do on the pitch, if that's what he's allowed to do on the pitch, that filters through to all the younger players. Like, they've just got rid of Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not at that level.
Ronaldo was a poisonous figure. I don't know if poisonous figure is fair
on the pitch. Could be a lovely guy off it. Who knows? I don't know. But that attitude, as you said, that's been there all the time. Like, yesterday was the worst. Yesterday was the worst we've seen from Bruno Fernandes.
But your team is losing 7-0 at Anfield. He's obviously...
But they weren't losing 7-0 when this started.
No, I know.
That's the problem.
But
this started at 2-0, 3-0.
I pointed this out 2 years ago when Fernandes was by far United's best player, that his gesticulating was infuriating to watch.
So annoying to watch.
This is absolutely nothing new by Fernandes. The only real striking thing was the Bajcetic moment at the end of the game when he just completely gave up.
But that happened on goal 3 or goal 4 in the middle of the pitch as well.
That really stood out for me. But other than that, that's exactly what I expect Fernandes to do. Like, this is the worst of Fernandes that you see, and the fact that he wears the captain's armband is a bit concerning. I imagine he's a somewhat positive influence when things are going well in the dressing room. But in many ways, this makes Erik ten Hag's summer plans probably more clear cut, because it's a reminder that United are nowhere near as good as they can be.
Sorry, that word
and
contenders.
This is also this United has been like New Year, New Me, New Year's resolution, where it's going so well for so long, but there's still that muscle memory of the last decade of United being so far off it that it came back with a vengeance yesterday, and I'd say Ten Hag was shocked. United also have a massive problem at Anfield. They've scored 1 goal in their last 7 games there, and that goal, Jesse Lingard, which was the last Jose Mourinho moment.
This is a different Manchester United. None of these previous games are massively relevant.
I would say they are.
There's been a change, all right, over the last
exactly
half decade that Liverpool have been far stronger than Manchester United, which makes it a very difficult place. Every team has a terrible record at Anfield over the last 5 or 6 years, but United are in a totally different place going into this game to where they were previously.
And as soon as they went 2 and 3, they were the players that were there last season when they lost 4-0. And that was an equally bad drubbing in terms of performance. They're like, oh, here we go again. And that was the really concerning
here we go
element.
again.
It was that crux of that team was there. And then they were like, oh no, we're back again. We're back to this.
There is obviously every 7-0 there's a definite freakish nature to, because they just don't happen every week. But it's not that freakish for this Manchester United is a big problem for Ten Hag. Look at the last 2 seasons. Look at the last 2 seasons. Conceded 7 against Liverpool. 6 against Manchester City. 5 against Liverpool. 4 against Liverpool, Brentford, Brighton, Watford, Leicester. All of that since the beginning of last season.
Is that not the way?
It wasn't relevant a second ago. You said this is a totally different United team this season.
No, but sorry, this is this season.
Is that
you're talking about the last 5-6
years?
But lads, this is why it's surprising. This is why it's surprising, because United fans have felt like they had turned a leaf. They won a trophy recently. They're beating Barcelona in the Europa League. The feel-good factors at the club. Erik ten Hag is the man in charge. He is brilliant. And look, a small cohort of United fans are probably saying, could we win a title? I think realistically speaking, United are not title contenders, never have been title contenders at all this season.
I thought they were actually.
I don't think so.
Yesterday. I really did.
It was a stretch.
I was absolutely shocked by how terrible they were in the second half. I really was. And when Ten Hag's team lose, they lose spectacularly. Like Nathan's already mentioned, Manchester Derby, the Brentford game. The only close defeat that they've had was the 3-2 to Arsenal in January. They've only lost once in 22 games going into it.
We're giving a lot of stick to Bruno, and rightfully so. Luke Shaw's defending in the second half. It's the worst. It's the worst individual performance in a half I've probably ever seen in the Premier League. Like, Luke Shaw's defending Sunday League, we talked about Casemiro. Varane was brutal, but Shaw's performance in that second half he was trying to get himself sent off as well, and I understand that he probably wanted to get out of there, get away from the glare of the cameras in the Anfield Cop end, and just get back home, because he was so bad. You'd question Luke Shaw after that. Like, I know
he's been questioned a lot of times, and look, his ball in for Rashford
He's been brilliant. Look, he's been brilliant.
He clearly got at him and targeted him. I understand. I'd be looking more at Casemiro and Varane from the high standards they have set. Like Casemiro in that second goal, where he's lying on the ground.
Oh, that was comical.
Wondering what the hell is going on. And as you said, in the first half, his passing was all over the shop. Like Varane. The second, so there's a lovely ball from Andy Robertson, and Fred makes a mistake in stepping across and leaving the space for Gakpo. But the second that, as you're watching on TV, the second that comes to Gakpo, you know he's going to step in onto his right foot.
Yeah.
And Rafa Varane's like, would you like to go this way, sir?
Yeah.
Would you like to walk in here and have the perfect little angle so you can
Lisandro
your goal?
Martinez blocked David De Gea's view for that shot, so De Gea had no chance of getting to it. It was such an odd display in terms of the lack of communication in defence as well. But you look at those players from last season, like Shane, you mentioned Luke Shaw's capitulation in the second half, because he was pretty decent in the first half.
Yeah.
And even for Roberto Firmino's goal, the seventh one, Varane's body language, if you look back on it, now I understand like it's the seventh goal and he's like, oh my God, but you could definitely see shades of Varane from last season where he was like, I remember this feeling, I remember this.
Yeah.
But look, if you want to try and get any positivity at all from Manchester United perspective of this game, I do think it says to Ten Hag, this project is nowhere near complete, and there's loads of areas that we need improvement, and there's many players who will be waking up this morning thinking, geez, I need to seriously improve dramatically,
who are these
or else
players?
I'm gone in the summer.
So what did they need? Because this day last week, it felt like all they needed was maybe a striker and a central midfielder.
That Weghorst wasn't the long-term solution, which clearly he isn't.
What do they need now?
I would have said this time last week that full back options on the left beyond Luke Shaw, Terrell Malacia, not totally convinced, but I would have said right back they could
Luke
definitely
Shaw
improve.
Probably up till yesterday have been in most
for
team
sure.
of the season.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But a backup to Shaw could have been a better backup. Right back, not really totally convinced by. Centre half is fine. The goalkeeper probably needs upgrading at some point.
I think he's okay.
Midfield,
you can see the 7.
Probably a better partner for Casemiro. Fernandes, I'd always have around just because of his the benefits that you get. The benefits you get from Fernandes are brilliant. What
are the benefits?
His goals and assists, his stats
are what?
Goals and assists
are what you would expect
very,
from
very
a player playing in the attacking midfielding
I would say
role
they're above
on a top
average
4 team.
Yeah, I would say they're above average for a midfield player. I would definitely
on a
say
top 4 team. Is he? Because this was one thing I wondered last week. So United, look, clearly are going in the right direction under Eric Ten Hag, from even more so than Mourinho and Solskjaer. And I know you can point out that they finished second in those seasons, and they mightn't even, and probably won't even finish second this season. The one thing we didn't know about United, and they're even further away now, is how far away from properly contending for a title? How far away are they from being in a position that Arsenal are in right now, where they're playing important games at this stage of the season, where it really, really matters, where they have to win, where you have to go out and win, away at Brentford. You have to do what Arsenal do, come from 2-0 down at the end. Like, they're miles away from that still. They have the massive problem that all the teams have, that Liverpool, as they try and rejuvenate, that Arsenal will have next season. Like, Manchester City will just go and invest again.
Yeah, possibly. But this time last year, nobody was saying Arsenal were title contenders this season. So that's how quickly you can turn it around if you do it right.
Look, Ten Hag's acquisitions have been good. So you'd think if you give him another summer and another couple of transfer windows, he's only going to improve the team. So United fans will be optimistic about that. It's just that today, the squad needs. They need to sit down this week.
Listen, I think he will. I think United should get better. But the teams around them may also get better and better.
For sure.
Manchester City may improve. Like, City are having an off season. City could go back to getting 95 points again next season.
We spent a lot of time United, and rightly so, because they were brutal. But we'll be coming back to Daniel Harris later on in the show as well, and Harry Pryor to kind of hone in a bit more on Liverpool. So we'll move on from them for now, but keep the comments coming in on Manchester United, and we'll continue to analyse what exactly went wrong for them at Anfield yesterday. Also in the red, West Ham and Tottenham Hotspur after their respective weekends. I was listening to Laro on Football Saturday, and he was talking about his good friend David Moyes, and he was thinking, is this it? A 4-0 defeat to Brighton. Pretty alarming defeat, in fact. Winless now in 11 away matches in the Premier League. Perilously close to those relegation discussions, you'd have to say, for David Moyes. And this was not an unlucky performance. It was just an abysmal performance from West Ham United. And the usual chance, sacked in the morning, started to happen. David Moyes in trouble, lads. I don't know if you think he's going to go, but I don't think he'll be gone after this game. Seems to be the the general feeling around West Ham. So he might survive another couple of games, but if it keeps going the way it's going, he's in trouble.
I felt he would be gone. I'm surprised he's still there. But then again, they did beat Nottingham Forest 4-0 recently, so that probably bought him a little bit of time. But I thought they were very poor against Manchester United in the FA Cup during the week from the position that they were in. And at the same time, when they were 1-0 down against Brighton at the weekend, Jared Bowen had a great chance to equalise. So could have gone differently. But I guess we're using that word again, capitulation. And that's what happened to West Ham. And it feels like the Moyes era can give no more. They squeeze the sponge out of that, and I do expect him to be replaced probably by Rafa Benitez, I'd imagine.
I think it would be a bad decision to get rid of Moyes right now. Maybe at the end of the season, you're probably right, it has run out of a little bit of steam, and it may be taken out of their hands when you look at their next two games are against Aston Villa and Southampton, both at home. So they need minimum of 4 points out of that. They're in the Conference League as well, so they're playing Larnaca on Thursday night. So there's a lot of games coming down the track. Like, they beat Forest 4-0. Forest are very solid defensively in general. United probably showed the problem for Moyes, I think, at getting to that next level. His record against top teams away from home is absolutely woeful.
Yeah.
A lack of ambition, it feels a lack of confidence. Laura made a comment on the show a few months back about David Moyes being a real worrier. And you get that sense watching his West Ham team. And it's probably what cost him at Manchester United. That he was thinking about what could go wrong rather than actually, we're 1-0 up against Manchester United. Let's go on and kick on. And they had chances. It's not his fault that Mikel Antonio has an absolute mare in front of goal and they win that. Suddenly there's a bit of momentum behind them. They might go and win at the weekend. Or maybe they don't, because like we're talking about Brighton in an historical sense almost. This is like Brighton produced one of the performances of the season. Like there were some outstanding performances in the Premier League at the weekend that will obviously be overshadowed by what Liverpool did. Brighton, the quality of Brighton's goals was insane.
What a job this guy's doing.
Oh well, they're already worried that he's going to go during the summer. His reputation is higher than Graham Potter's was. It feels. I was over at the Cup game where Evan Ferguson got injured against Liverpool, and it was in his press conference afterwards, annoying all the journalists by just asking about Evan Ferguson when it was the final day of the transfer window, and all they wanted to know was about Moses Caicedo. But he was incredibly impressive in that press conference with how he firstly handled the Caicedo situation, which was, we want to keep him. I think he's a great guy. He's obviously being led astray by those beside him, but I think he's a great guy, and if he comes back in, I'll still think he's a great guy. Very strong with the owner, Tony Bloom, who by all accounts is one of the better owners in the Premier League, invests in the right way, do their due diligence in terms of recruitment of players and of managers as well, and said, you know, if he wants to finish in the European spots, you cannot sell your best players in January. That's what this club has traditionally done over the last few years, and that's why they can't kick on. He managed to keep Caicedo. Caicedo was exceptional at the weekend. Evan Ferguson's role in Mitoma's goal that he tucked in, that counter-attack and little back heel from Ferguson on the edge of the area and the cross from Mitoma. Alexis McAllister has come back, got his goals after the World Cup. Like, they are a team you want to go and watch right now.
Mitoma's a cracking player.
What a player.
McAllister, all through that team. And they are one of these teams that you watch them against the top 4, top 6, and you go, he'd probably improve them. Like Estepinian, again, they just sold Cucurella for 50 million quid during the summer. And Estepinian's come in at left back, and it's even better.
Their transfer policy is brilliant, second to none. Like, every other team should be following their blueprint. We should touch on Spurs as well. I mean, disappointing weekend for them, to say the least. Still in 4th, remarkably so. Christian Stellini after the game saying they weren't nasty enough in that game against Wolves. Wolves moved 6 points clear of relegation. Big opportunity wasted for Tottenham, you'd have to say. They were probably the better team in the first half. It certainly was the old cliche game of two halves. And they have that Champions League second leg against AC Milan upcoming this week now on Wednesday, and a massive game against Nottingham Forest after that before the international break. So Conte will return now after his gallbladder operation. But yeah, worrying times for Tottenham Hotspur as well. Will we keep the show moving, lads? Because there's a lot to get through here. We'll go to the Amber. Brendan Rodgers, and actually two Brendan Rodgers, because that's why it's in the Amber. One had a bad week and weekend, and one had a very good weekend. So we'll start with the bad weekend for Leicester City manager Brendan Rodgers. Safe to say, called for his sacking after the weekend in a defeat by Southampton on Saturday, 1-0. They're just 2 points above the Premier League's relegation zone. 7th defeat in 10 top flight games for Leicester. Only Bournemouth, who are bottom of the league, have won fewer points than Leicester since the resumption after the World Cup. 4 successive defeats, knocked out of the FA Cup as well to Blackburn Rovers. And yeah, all of a sudden now you're getting names being thrown out. Thomas Frank, Ralph Hasenhüttl, even Benitez as well, as potential replacements for Brendan Rodgers. So he had a bad week.
You lose to Southampton, you're in a spot of bother.
New era Southampton. That's the only thing he'll be saying about that. Well, they're
much like Moy. It
Jones
felt like
left.
the Rodgers era had probably ran out of steam towards the end of last season. I still feel he's incredibly harshly judged all of the time. I think he's a very good manager who could easily and should be always in and around a top 6 club. The way this is disintegrated over the past year, 18 months, probably means he won't be in the mix for one of those straight away. But managers live and die by their players, and his biggest problem is Jamie Vardy has reached old age and can't play anymore, and his replacements can't score any goals. Kelechi Iheanacho, it's cliche, he should have had a hat-trick. He should have had a hat-trick. He missed 2 absolute sitters from headers from 5 yards out that he has to score. And then Gavin Bazunu, who had a couple of ropey moments, kicks the ball straight to him and he fires it in on top of the crossbar. Like, this is a game Leicester should have won. It's a game Iheanacho should have scored some goals, and that's sort of been the story of their season. They've had a lot of injuries over the last couple of years. They haven't invested in the areas they should, and there's only so much a manager can do with that.
Yeah, the money's gone, and like I was saying the same thing about Rodgers. I thought it had run its course. I was expecting him to leave either by his own decision or decision by the club, and he hasn't. So I actually think he's doing very well to get any more out of this Leicester side. And you're totally right, Rodgers gets a very hard time, and literally every single club he's been at, he's done well. And you also forget that he won the FA Cup for Leicester.
Yeah, he's a good manager,
like,
clearly.
He's done brilliantly well. But I do feel like there's a change incoming there, a bit like at West Ham. I think that's going to happen.
With the other Brendan Rodgers then, a lot of Derry fans screaming at the screen at the moment, and rightly so. What a night for them in Celtic Park. What was it, 12,000 or so fans under the lights, sold out stadium as well. Really, really good atmosphere it seemed. I wasn't at the game, but certainly through the TV screens, that's the way it appeared. Brendan Rodgers with the late point in stoppage time to cap off that comeback. Niall Toner's goal as well, kind of setting them on their way. And you're thinking at half time, Dublin well ahead in this game, 7-2 ahead. Then Tom Lahiff fists another point, and you're thinking, well, this is potentially heading the way of the Dubs. And then that inspirational point from Ethan Doherty to kind of bring Derry back into it, maybe give them that little boost and think, well, we could get something out of this game still. But then towards the end, Kieran Kilkenny tagging on a couple of points, and you're thinking, yeah, they're pulling away yet again. Oisin McWilliams then and Lachlan Murray kicking those late points. Derry ahead for the first time in the game in the 69th minute of the match. Then that Costello free levels it. McGuigan wastes a chance, and Rodgers wins it with the final kick. It was the perfect game management. Pass the ball around. We're either going to draw this game or win it, and they managed to get that one last score. Brendan Rodgers, who I spoke very glowingly about last season, really, really unbelievable player for Derry, and he was such a crucial cog in that semi-final run last year in the Championship. So what a weekend for Derry. What a win. Division 1, straight up to Division 1 for next season.
From Division 4 all the way up to Division 1.
It's impressive, isn't it?
We were talking to Declan Bogan on Thursday night show, and because Rory Gallagher, obviously there's always criticism of his style of football, and at half-time in that game when you've scored 2 points in the first half, it's coming at you hard and fast. But he has managed to unite Derry football. He has managed to bring them back, as you say, very quickly to Division 1, and they looked in that second half like an elite team, like Brendan Rodgers and Brian Fenton. You were watching that tussle going, maybe we're talking about the 2 best midfielders in the country right now.
Yeah.
Like Rodgers, some of the balls he managed to pluck ahead of Fenton, and Fenton is it's just his face. He's definitely always comes across one of the more gracious losers. Yeah, and we didn't see him lose for 5 years, so he didn't have much time to practice it even.
No,
but there seems a genuineness you can tell in his face as to the guys he really respects, and the shake of the hand with Rodgers and the sort of knowing glances towards the end of the game of, all right, this guy has pushed me to the pin of my collar.
Yeah, I think like Derry are definitely All-Ireland contenders, and I can't see past them for the Ulster Championship this year. I really can't.
Top of Division 2. Imagine if they were top of Division 1.
I know. Yeah, the Mayo lads are on form this morning as well. So look, apologies to Mayo fans. We can't get to it. There's just too much to get to. Congrats to Mayo.
No, come back to us at the end of July.
We will.
Don't want to be in green until the last Sunday in July, Shane.
You cute hers. That's what you are. Arsenal in the green. I think they have to be, don't they, for the club generally speaking after the weekend. We'll start with the women's team yesterday, County Cup. Fantastic performance, especially the character that they showed after losing to Arsenal or to Chelsea the previous week. And then Sam Kerr gives Chelsea the lead after 2 minutes, and you're thinking, the writing's on the wall here. Chelsea are going to go on and win the game as well. But a brilliant performance, and what a moment for those Arsenal fans to just cap off a weekend in front of the Chelsea owner as well, Todd Bowley, who was at the match at the County Cup final yesterday. But Blackstenius, Kim Little's penalty, Niamh Charles' own goal, gets them over the line. They said after the Chelsea game the previous week, Jonas Eidevall, the Arsenal manager, that they felt that they had kind of managed Sam Kerr quite well. And yesterday it was proved right. Even after 2 minutes they concede, and they still managed to cope with her and that threat that Sam Kerr and the whole Chelsea forward line poses. So a brilliant win, and look, it just mirrored the comeback win the previous day from Reece Nelson's goal, and the absolute scenes against Bournemouth. What a 3-2 win for Arsenal. A title-winning performance, you'd have to say.
One thing on The Guardian went with Katie McCabe on the back page lifting the trophy, and she had a really good game, but she was taken off quite early before the hour mark, and you do wonder.
She won the penalty as well.
Yeah,
there didn't seem to be any talk about an injury or anything massive after the game, so hopefully there's nothing to worry about. But it shows the folly, even if she did have a bit of a head cold a couple of weeks ago, of not having her in that Arsenal team. And when they played last week, Arsenal had more chances and just couldn't take them, and Blackstenius missed a host of chances and obviously took her chance early yesterday. Emma Hayes was interesting after the game, talking about Chelsea and their complacency. It was a really interesting interview. I couldn't figure out exactly who she was trying to get at with it. It was one of those where there was definitely a point being made to either the media or the players, where it was, when you've won as many trophies as we have, and she must have said this about 4 times, like, we have won a lot of trophies. When you've won all the trophies we have,
It was a Mourinho moment, wasn't it?
won all the trophies we have, you know, you could tell we were the team who'd won all the trophies lately, and if they hadn't won any trophies, and you could tell, and I'm just really disappointed in the complacency. But you know, when you look, so it was, I just couldn't figure out whether it was a real, all right, Arsenal, well done, you've won the League Cup, but you know, you're probably out of the title race. We're still in control of the league, even with Manchester United pulling clear yesterday. You know, we're still the big dogs. Let's see how we all get on in the Champions League. Or was she actually really having a dig at her team, going, well, this sort of complacency can't kick in again for the rest of the season?
Yeah, the reminder of those trophies, always be updating your virtual LinkedIn. This is what I was doing, this is what I've brought to the club. But like the fact that they were unbeaten since the first
on
day
your
of the season in
LinkedIn.
WSL, not that.
What have you brought?
And they were like, they started so well, and it was a team of Arsenal's weekend to concede very, very early, like 9.11 seconds early on Saturday, and then to do it after, was it 90 odd seconds with Sam Kerr's goal, and to come back both times. It's like you really couldn't have had much of a better weekend for Arsenal since probably the glory days of the Arsene Wenger era.
What a weekend for Arsenal. You have to remember, for the women's team as well, Beth Mead and Miedema, like those crucial injuries before Christmas, you're thinking this could be the end of their season in many ways, because two crucial players for the team, and they hadn't beaten Chelsea in 5, so that was impressive. But even when Arsenal on Saturday went 2-0 down to Bournemouth, you never felt like they were out of the game. You're like, this is going to be a Fergie time, late type situation. Now, when it was 2-2 in the 96th minute, I didn't think they were going to win the game, but just an incredible moment. Reece Nelson's finish,
this
spectacular.
was the moment of the season so far. There's nothing better in football than a goal when the game is over. And by that I mean, so you've had your last chance. So it was 6 minutes of injury time, and we've gone through it, and they've already had an opportunity, and then they get the corner kick. It's one of those, you're going, he won't even let them take the corner kick because we're out of time. So it's done. Yeah. So the Arsenal fans, we've thrown everything at them, probably deserve to win the game with the way they played in the second half and the way they bombarded the Bournemouth goal. And you go, listen, 1 point, it's back to 3, bit of momentum gone. You got to be beating Bournemouth in these sort of games, all the criticism that's going to come their way. And then the quality of the finish and the celebrations. The Athletic have gone full scale Athletic, brilliant, with a deep dive into the celebrations. Who was the first player over to Reece Nelson? What Odegaard did away from the cameras? The little kid that Mikel Arteta was suddenly celebrating with? All of that. And it was a moment where I think if you're a neutral, you're looking at it going, you know what, I think I would like Arsenal to win the league this season. I think it would mean so much more to them than it would to
City.
Manchester City.
They're just better to watch than City too, aren't they?
Well, they are. And the thing that is really, when you watch Arsenal over the past couple of months, is the little bit of depth that they have in their squad and players who've been able to make a difference. So they had a really good January transfer window, it turned out, in signing Jorginho and Trossard.
Yeah.
Without spending an insane amount of money. Like, Trossard comes on, I think in that game against Manchester United, he was the match winner. He was the one who made the difference in the closing stages with the way he brought the game to United. He's allowed them to play a different system. Obviously, he went off injured, but he's allowed them suddenly, with Nketiah getting injured, to play Martinelli up front, which seems to play Martinelli and Trossard together and allow Martinelli at times to get into a more central position. So he's done well. Jorginho obviously has the shot off the crossbar that ends up in the own goal for Emi Martinez. It is this massive moment in that game that looks to have won it for them in injury time. And when Partey was out, is able to step in the middle of midfield and do a pretty solid job. And then Nketiah, replaces Jesus, scores some goals. Reece Nelson comes out of nowhere, comes on, scores some goals. Smith Rowe is back as well, who I've always thought is a really nice player. They might just have enough depth there.
It was
to get this done.
That result was title-winning stuff. Like you see it over the years with teams getting over with exactly games like that. Like you could argue that this time last season they would have either lost or drawn that game against Bournemouth, and they've come on that a little bit more. Also, Reece Nelson, our own Stephen Doyle, tweeted this in the immediate aftermath of the match. His first Premier League appearance since November. What an impact!
That's mad.
What an impact! Like to have that over your CV. We're getting like hundreds of comments in here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. It's hard to pick the best now. But here's one from Paul McGee. In my entire life supporting Liverpool, that was the best day I've ever had, bar Istanbul.
Sorry, we should mention that brings us on to the last screen, Liverpool, of course. Which, I mean, United fans have to take their medicine, take the defeat, take it gently, and give some credit to Liverpool, because this performance just felt like every time Liverpool got the ball in the second half, it was going to end up in the back of David De Gea's net. The ball was almost being sucked into the cop. It was like literally every time Liverpool got the ball, I was like, yeah, they're going to score. They're absolutely going to score. Whether it was calamitous defending or what, but Liverpool's attacking threat was just unbelievable. Every time Salah got the ball, beautiful volley as well.
Mo Salah's worth touching on here. He's broken Robbie Fowler's record, Liverpool's highest scoring Premier League player, ever 129 goals, went into the game on 127. Also, no one's really talking about Salah this season. He scored 22 goals. The standards that he's set for himself, it's like he's quietly going about having a brilliant season, because of how phenomenal he's been in previous years. And listen, look, this Liverpool performance just reminded me yesterday that, like, these lads should be contending for the title. Even if they are tired after last season, even if they did play every single game possible last season, they're still that good. Even with the midfield deficiencies.
Alan Quinlan is going to be on the line. He's got a can of 7-Up. He's got a can of 7-Up.
I can feel Alan Quinlan here
at the door.
Like, he's right here.
We usually struggle to get him in the studio. He's in an hour early today. Salah, Salah's standards are so high because of that. I think the brilliant season, you expect him to score so many goals. The key yesterday, and I felt this watching them in the first 20 minutes against Real Madrid, when Liverpool are at their best, and listen, maybe this is the most obvious statement of all time, Salah needs that for him to be at his best, because he plays the game faster than anybody else I've seen it play in the Premier League in recent times, in that he needs it to be 100 miles an hour. His control is so good. So when the ball is pinged to him the way it can be from Trent or from Robertson or crossfield, and you look at the speed of his reaction when he twists and turns and sends Martinez. The second Martinez slips, he doesn't panic. That's when he goes, all right, now I can just slip and eat the little ball in.
Yeah.
But that's, if you look at the quality of goals that he's scored, and you think of the goal against Manchester City, was it last season? Some of the goals where he wiggles his way in the area. If it's 110 miles an hour, which is the way Liverpool generally play, that's when he comes into his own, because he can do things that nobody else can do, and that's the way they played in the second half yesterday.
Shane, that was a volley.
It was absolutely
Salah's goal.
All right. I was confused following this conversation on Friday, because there was, even by the standards of this show, it was somewhat quite nonsensical. So your point on,
I'm going to make a quick point here.
So
we're going to have to
just
go
on
here.
you put up a tweet. So Wayne Rooney scoring from the halfway line.
We have the Twitter poll, so we'll put it up. I was putting up the West Ham Rooney near halfway line goal, which obviously bounces up. There's the results of the poll. So it's over 1,000 votes. 19% said it was a volley, 56% a half volley, 25% something else. I was getting criticised. Can I just say this, Nathan, before you make a point in this? I was getting criticised and slandered on the show on Friday for saying that it was a volley. And yet, only 19% of people agreed with me. You might say that Gilly Flaherty, a professional footballer, disagreed with me as well. I got a voice message from a player with 110 international caps for his country at the weekend. So, Kevin Gilban, play the clip.
It's a volley. Wayne Rooney's goal against West Ham is a volley. It's only a half volley if it bounces immediately and you're connecting with it on the bounce, like a half or like a drop goal in rugby. That's a half volley. A volley doesn't matter whether it bounces, whether you're connecting with it on the full prior to it bouncing, it's still a volley. So, and every single professional footballer that's ever played the game and have been taught since the age of probably 7 or 8 years of age know full well the difference between a volley and a half volley. It doesn't matter whether it's bounced or not. If it bounced and it bounces high, it's a volley. Half volley, as I was trying to explain to you before, is like a drop goal in rugby. That's what a half volley is, where it just literally bounces and you hit it on the bounce or on the up. That's a half volley.
Salah's goal was a volley. I'll be taking no further questions.
Discovering voice messages is one of the worst things that's ever happened. It's just such a bad example, the Wayne Rooney one.
Okay.
The
Such a bad example.
Salah goal is the same example.
No, but it's not, because
we gotta go.
Rooney's at the halfway line.
Rooney's
at the halfway line. So it's
gotta
neither
go.
a volley or a half volley.
Salah's was a
gotta
volley.
We will
Harris
get
and
back
volley.
to Liverpool. We have spent only about 30 seconds talking about them, but I think as Manchester United, when you lose 7-0, probably are the story. But we will be talking with Harriet Pryor in just a little while.